My right shoulder is 1 inch shorter than my left, and I don't puppeteer that much. So a lot of the puppeteers who are always puppeteering have it even more exaggerated than me. Your body changes shape. I can hold my arm up much longer than you because my shoulder is short. I mean, my spine is moved or whatever. But actually, we get to the point where Dave, where are you?
I'm here.
Dave does probably the hardest work in puppetry. How long have you puppeteered without bringing your hand down?
About 12, 14 minutes.
Oh. Yeah.
That's complete limit. It all goes, you know what happens.
Yeah. You stop being able to lip sync. You can't feel your hand anymore. And I do believe I say that's long. The longest was Steve Whitmire did Kermit in a Rose Bowl parade, 3 hours. But he was going through something, so he had some help holding it up. But yeah, sometimes it's long, and your arms do change shape, and some of the puppeteers have issues with their shoulders. You have to take care of your body.
Hi. So I've seen like live interviews where the person, like, there'll be a person talking to a puppet, and they'll start off skeptical. And then by the end of the interview, they're making eye contact. They're sucked in. They're having a conversation with the puppet. I'm just curious if that's a magical thing that you see happen a lot.
I think it's the essence of puppetry, and it's why it's such an old art form. And I think there is something instinctively exciting or interesting about bringing something inanimate to life and saying, "Oh, you won't listen to me? Well, Mr. Rock is going to tell you it's time to go to bed. Because if you don't, you'll be sleepy." We just do it automatically. It's interesting. But yes, always when we start, once you start working with actors, and they're initially they don't get it, and then they lock into the puppet. And because the puppet, and so does the puppeteer. That's the other thing. Puppeteering is not an internal process. It's very different from acting. Acting, particularly method acting, is I'm going to live the character. I'm not acting. I'm just so much I am the character that now all I have to do is speak the words and I'm acting. You can't do that with puppetry. Puppetry is an entirely objective art form. You're sticking it out at the end of your arm, and then when you get even better, you're sticking it out onto the monitor. So that it isn't internal at all. It's this weird external thing that's going on, and I think that's just part of the magic of puppetry generally.
What is the one thing that you guys at the company have learned over the years, either technologically or some little trick personally, that you think really blew the art of puppetry forward the most?
Well, I think it was probably the two first things I said: getting rid of the puppet stage and letting the frame be the puppet stage. That brought the puppetry so much more intimately, so much more intimate experience with audience. And the other thing is playing the fourth wall, playing to camera, talking to camera. I think it was those two things probably, and also just my dad was a really good entertainer and really smart, and he came up with really good. But I think those two things is what really propelled puppetry into television. So that television became the most correct medium for puppetry, which I think that's probably what I would think.
How often do you change project? How often do you change projects?
How often? I mean, how many are we doing at a time? It's really hard. You know what? It's a crazy business. Have you ever asked me what am I going to be doing next month? I never know. And family members in the house will tell you that when we say, "Well, where are we going for Thanksgiving?" I'm always the one who goes, "I have no idea where I'm going to be." I have no idea what I'm going to do. We are always developing, as a company, 5 or 6 movies, 10 or 12 children's shows, 5 or 6 family shows. And then we're always pushing all of them. We get to capacity probably, we can't do really more than like 5 in a year of series or movies. And usually we do 2 or 3.
Are you going to do another Feature Shot challenge?
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
I love you. No, probably not. The truth is probably not. It was a great show. Sci-Fi loved it. They also lost a ton of money on all their other shows. so they literally had all their budgets were cut, and we couldn't produce at their new budget level. So we only did that one season. I would like to, I'm still working on trying to rework it into something else maybe, but you can't move TV shows. That's another thing. You can't move TV shows. Nobody will take them. They're like, oh, I don't want a TV show that another channel will stop making. You know, unless the heads of the two channels are like old high school buddies. They're about the only ones that can take the embarrassment.
Hi, I wondered, I saw on YouTube the live performance of Dr. Keith and the Electrical Mayhem. What prompted that, and what were the logistics like trying to do a live performance?
I didn't do it. This was up in San Francisco, this was up in Northern California last month. I did not do that. So that was the Muppet Gang. Bill Barretta went up with all of that. I didn't do it, so I can't comment on it.
What has been the hardest thing that you've had to work on in your business?
Getting Happy Time Murders into production, which I still haven't gotten it into production. No, but probably that will be once I do, it will be the hardest thing I've ever done. But getting Farscape into production was the hardest thing I ever did. And we worked for 3 years on designing Farscape and planning it. And in the end, we had to produce it for half the money of the Star Trek shows. And we had to shoot in fewer days, and our show was bigger and more complex, and I couldn't be more proud of that team in Australia that did that. But really, Farscape was impossible. It was an impossible show to make, impossible to make it for that money, and I couldn't be more proud of that show. So I think it's a fantastic show, but it really is extraordinary, really hard to sell it and get it made.
When you have a puppet that requires 5 puppeteers, how do you maintain spontaneity but still remain synchronized?
Well, that's what we couldn't really, which is why we developed the performance control, the PCS system. It was all of the time that we involved the parallel processing computers, it was to reduce the number of puppeteers. So it was really, really hard. Having said that, if you had enough time to rehearse, and you would rehearse with scenes specific, you wouldn't rehearse ad-libbing, because that's impossible. So we would rehearse, like with Howard, we would rehearse the scenes and the dialogue over and over and over and over. And what we found is when we once we had locked into material that we knew what it was, all of a sudden we could start being spontaneous and going off on the tangents, and we had this weird mind melt that had developed over time. But it's generally very tough, so we try not to do it if possible. We try to have a character perform at 2 or 3.
Going back to what you were saying about the difficulty of the business and selling a show, do you think with the changes in the internet and being able to self-produce and crowdfunding and avenues like that, do you think that'll change what you're trying to do rather than trying to sell a show to a network? You might try to move forward with that.
Well, there's
so much more niche kind of content.
Yeah. There's more places to sell to now, and we are doing it. Like we're producing for Amazon, we're producing for Hulu, we're producing for Netflix. We're definitely producing in all these different ways. Crowdfunding, I haven't so much. We haven't really used that yet. I haven't tried that yet, but it would be kind of cool. But we haven't tried that yet.
Have you ever thought of doing anything new with like dinosaurs, like maybe a movie or something?
Again, there's another one. I said Farscape was the most difficult. Dinosaurs made it harder. It would be almost, with dinosaurs, we had to make like 22 episodes in the first season because it had 12 of the most complex computerized animatronic characters on screen every day. We had to shoot one a week. To try to do a special would be like $8, $9, $10 million. No more, probably $13, $14 million just to do a half-hour special. So we probably can't. It's probably, we have talked in the past sometimes about doing a movie. That one is co-controlled by Disney and us, so they would have to get enthusiastic about it. I probably not. It's such a good show, but I doubt we will do more. Plus, we killed all the dinosaurs. As we know from Farscape, people can die.
It's the beginning of the Ice Age, so you could say they got frozen. You just
yeah, that's right. And then they thawed.